All righty, I am live. I think we are good on Instagram. We are good on YouTube. So, welcome to Your Money Questions Answered. This is my weekly live show where I'm taking questions about personal finances. It could be anything from investing to saving, and I'm taking questions from my YouTube subscribers. So if you're a subscriber on my YouTube channel, you can comment on any video, but especially the ones that are for your money questions answered. This is episode one, and I'd be happy to answer any of your money questions that you have. So I have a few questions today that have come in from the past week that I'm going to get to. The first question comes from Carlos, and Carlos says, is it a good idea to hold 50% TEC and 50% VFV? So this is a question that Carlos had about investing. And so Carlos is wondering, if the VFV is a S&P 500 index fund. And so that holds all of the companies that are in the S&P 500 index. And TEC, it looks like it's a Canadian, it seems like it's a high growth investment fund. It has a really low management fee, TEC, which I love that. So that's great. But Carlos is wondering, is it a good idea to hold 50% TEC and 50% VFV? Ultimately, these are both fine choices, right? I recommend to kind of go with what Warren Buffett recommends, which is just buying and holding a low cost S&P 500 index fund. So that would be VFV. And holding 50% TEC, like I'm assuming, Carlos, that you're wanting to get some more growth, which is why you're kind of going towards some a fund like TEC and trying to get some higher growth from some of the tech companies there. So if Carlos, that's something you're looking for, I would also recommend checking out QQQ. QQQ is kind of the industry standard for judging how well the tech industry is growing. So QQQ is an awesome high growth tech fund. Potentially look at adding that to replacing TEC, and that might be something you want to look at, Carlos. But yeah, splitting it up between like 50% in a super high growth, more of a tech-based index fund, and also the S&P 500 index fund, that's an absolutely fine split to do. I mean, we're really picking at straws here when it comes to it. As long as you are investing with a low management fee fund, so that's anything less than 0.5%, then you're on the right track. And we're really just kind of like picking at straws if we're saying, what about this fund? What about that fund? Having 50% in an S&P 500 fund is amazing and absolutely incredible. And so if you just buy and hold that, Carlos, you are going to be well on your way to financial success. So thank you for that question, Carlos. And my next question, let's go with Mark, not me, Mark, but another Mark that I have. Mark's question was about an Instagram post that I had that was looking at growing your investments. And in this specific Instagram story that I had, it was showing you how to take $9,000 and turning that into over $100,000 in only 20 years. And Mark asked how. So that's a great question, Mark. The reason why that is possible is because of compound interest. And so what I hear was, I essentially looked at saying, you have $9,000 now. What if you just invest this into an S&P 500 index fund? And if you're consistently saving money and you're consistently buying a low cost S&P 500 index fund, what it does is it actually pays you dividends, which means every, like if you have a TFSA, for example, or a Roth IRA, every like quarter, I believe, is when VFV pays out. And all of a sudden in your account, you'll see, oh, I have an extra 20 bucks here. I have an extra 100 bucks here. Those are the dividend payments that you get. Now, if you take those dividend payments and then rebuy what you were going to already own, so VFV in this case, that is how you really fuel compound interest. And so if all those payments you get, you just keep rebuying, that is how it becomes possible to turn, about $10,000 into over $100,000 in a matter of 20 years. But the trick is that most people will at some point sell. You'll either sell it or you'll change your funds and buy something else. And that's usually usually why most people can't really achieve the effects of compound interest, because compound interest, it takes time, right? And it's an exponential curve. So if you think about the curve like this, so for the first, like, let's say even 5 years, 8 years out of those 20 years, you're going to be growing a little bit, but you're not going to be growing that much. But it's really like those last few years where you can really fuel your investments if you stay invested and if you stay reinvesting those dividends. So Mark, that's how you can turn about $10,000 into $100,000 in 20 years. I have another question here from Canadian, fire.canadian on Instagram. And thank you, Fire Canadian. I forget what your name is. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting it, but you're awesome. You chat a lot. It's great. And Fire Canada was asking me, do you get paid to be sponsored? So I do not get paid to be sponsored at all. I do have some platforms that I'll recommend, like Questrade and Coho, but I don't get paid by them. I'm not sponsored by them. However, I do recommend the platforms that I use personally and the platforms that I benefit from, and that, like, I actually enjoy using them. And so when I do find platforms like that, like Questrade, I absolutely love Questrade, and I absolutely love Coho. I'm actually trying to move all of my banking from TD. I bank with TD, one of the big banks in Canada. I'm trying to move all my finances into Coho. It's a little bit complicated because I have a mortgage with TD, but I enjoy Coho so much that I'm actually trying to move most of my money into Coho. But no, I don't get paid to be sponsored by any of them. I do sometimes, if I enjoy an app like Questrade or Coho, I'll see if they have an affiliate program, because I do promote companies that will benefit you as far as your personal finances go or growing your wealth goes. And so I'll try to have affiliate links that I can get a little bit of a kickback. It's not much. I think Questrade, I get maybe $20 if someone signs, or not if someone signs up, if someone's makes a deposit and starts investing with them. But regardless, I don't really care about getting sponsored, because really, Money with Mark, my Instagram, my YouTube channel, it's all about trying to increase people's wealth via personal finances, because I'm a firm believer that it's not about how much money you make. It's about what you do with the money that you do make. So that's my whole spiel. And it's my goal with this channel, my Money with Mark channel, is to bring the Canadian interest, or the Canadian savings rate, to all-time highs. So this is my big overarching goal. And Gamer T1000 asked me on YouTube, have you been to prison? You look familiar. I think I probably saw you in prison, Gamer. So yes, I guess I have. No, just kidding. I haven't been to prison, but great question. Thank you for being a subscriber. Where was I going with that? I forget where I was going, but anyways, that comment really made me laugh. That was really funny. Okay, so I want to get on to my next question, which comes from Reddit. And it says, if you had an extra $50,000 to $70,000 kicking around, where would you invest it? And would it change if this was a leveraged investment at a reasonably low interest rate? I want to do as little maintenance as possible and let the money sit for 10 to 15 years before touching it. I'm thinking VEQT. Would like to hear your suggestions. So VEQT, I'm not exactly familiar with what that fund is, but let's pull it up. Vanguard All Equity ETF Portfolio. Okay, so that's a fine fund to invest in if you're looking for something that's passive. Would you change if it was a leverage investment at a reasonably low interest rate? So the answer is no. I wouldn't change your investment strategy based on if you can get a low interest rate and get leverages occurring with your investments. Just personally, I don't really like to do a lot of leveraged investing. I really just like to own what I do own and invest it and buy and hold it and let it grow over the long period of time. So if I had an extra 50,000 to 70,000 kicking around, also, I'm not sure why you would have $50,000 to $70,000 kicking around. I'm assuming that you probably have an actual amount. Maybe you're getting inheritance or something coming in, which is definitely common. If this is the case, you have an extra $50,000 from inheritance, I would put it into either a TFSA or a Roth IRA. Roth IRA if you're American. And yeah, I would buy something. VEQT is fine. VTI is fine. And also VFV would also be fine too. Just essentially a low cost index fund. You're on the right track, and you know that you have invested in a low cost index fund. You're on the right path. So that's all that you really need to do. And I would even try to let it sit longer than 10 to 15 years before touching it, because the longer you can let it sit and have been invested and reinvesting in dividends, like I said before, the higher it's going to grow. So I have another question coming in. Zafar, thanks for asking this question, Zafar. Thanks for being a YouTube subscriber for Money with Mark. I know Yoker Money, I kind of did a little bit of a rebrand here. But Zafar is asking me here, I'm a 23-year-old computer science student, 8 months out of school, working as a web developer. I currently have no debt and have paid off all my student loans. Is saving for a house a next good purchase? Zafar, this is a great question. Thank you very much. And first of all, congratulations, Zafar. This is an incredible achievement for you to be just out of school for 8 months and have already absolutely mind-blowing. Congratulations on doing that. I'm very impressed. Keep up that good savings rate. So the next question is house your next good purchase? The answer when it comes to buying real estate is it depends. And that's because let's think about what you're going to do with that real estate. So if you have just the desire to buy a single family home, move into it either with yourself or with like a partner perhaps, usually owning a home is going to be more expensive if it's just you or if it's just you or just you and your partner or your family. Usually that will be more expensive in the long run, owning it, than renting it. So that's kind of a nice simplified answer for your question, if that's what you're thinking. However, there's something that actually there's a really good book so far. It's an American book. I don't know if you're from the US or Canada, but it's called House Hacking. And it's a great read. It goes into like way too many details than it should. But if you can find a real estate investment that you can house hack in, and what house hacking is let's say you buy a townhouse that has 2 separate units, right? You live in the one unit and you rent out the other unit that's right beside you. This is like the best thing you can do for your personal finances, because what it does is you renting out those other units. So instead of buying a single family house, you're basically looking to buy either a multi-unit place, maybe a small apartment building with like 3 apartments in it, a townhouse, or even just like a house with like a basement suite. Anywhere where you have the potential to like rent out a room. This is honestly going to do so much benefits for your personal finances, because it will be able to, the rent from those other places, it'll be able to help you pay your mortgage off. And in many cases, it'll actually be able to pay your mortgage off completely for you. So if you can reduce your housing costs to like 0 or even close to 0, then that's honestly going to be a great place for you, Zafar, to be in. So I'd recommend saving for not just a house purchase, but a very strategic house purchase. And when it comes to actually getting a house hacking property. So that's what I recommend for you to do, Zafar. You can save with that in your TFSA and your RSP. So go ahead and be saving for that. And it seems like you have a really high savings rate, considering you are debt-free and paid off your student loans after only being 8 months out of school. So congrats on that. And yeah, good luck saving up for your very first house hack. This other question that I have here is, how do you balance saving with enjoying life? This question is from Trey from Reddit. This is a good question, because in the personal finance, financial independent, retire early community, the FIRE community or the FI community, I do see a lot of people that get lost in over saving. And I know this is like kind of backwards. And earlier in this live stream, I was saying, you know, how I want to bring Canada's savings rate, which is at like, I think 2% right now, up to 25% and reach new all-time highs. That's my goal with this personal finance channel. And I do see a lot of people get lost in saving their money. And while saving your money is good, it is important that you balance that with enjoying life. Because if we think about two extremes, right? If you are constantly spending your money and you know that you're just accumulating debt consistently, and just going further in the hole, that's not a good place to be in. But if we think of the very other extreme, where it's, oh, I'm saving all my money, but like I don't do anything that I enjoy doing. I used to go running, or I used to go boating, and I just quit boating because it's too expensive, or I quit skiing because it's too expensive, or I sold my bike even though I love biking. And that extreme isn't necessarily good either, because we are humans. Like, we do need to be enjoying our life. And when it comes to most topics, I find it's all about how we balance each of those two extremes. It seems like overall, because Canadians have an average savings rate of about like 2% ish roughly right now. I think it went back up a little bit with COVID, but we're probably too much on the spending side of things right now. And so, which is why I'm trying to kind of push people over to more of the savings side of things. But just be weary when you are trying to save a lot of money, because you should definitely not be cutting back on things that you enjoy doing. If you really enjoy mountain biking, then by all means, like, go and fix your bike up. Maybe even invest in a new bike, because like, honestly, we're only here, while saving money and like growing your wealth is good and fine. Like, we are only here on this earth once, and it's important that you do the things that you love. So definitely do not be cutting back on the things that you really enjoy doing. So here's a good example of this. Is I'm a paddler. So I race canoes is what I do, which is like crazy probably for Americans, but in Canada, at least, or in Atlantic Canada, canoe racing, kayak racing is like a really popular sport. I really enjoy doing it. And last summer I spent just over, I think, almost $500 on a canoe paddle, and which, like, it probably seems extreme to some people, right? Like, spending $500 on a canoe paddle. Like, first of all, I sound like the most Canadian. It's the most Canadian thing ever, right? To spend like $500 on a canoe paddle, half a grand on a canoe paddle. It's ridiculous. But it makes sense because I love canoeing, and I really wanted this paddle because this paddle would really help my sport and my improvement in the sport. And I do it. I probably go paddling like 4 or 5 times a week, and so honestly, like, it was one of the best purchases I've ever made. I absolutely love my paddle now, and like, I take it with me everywhere I go. And yeah, and so, like, for some people that doesn't make sense, right? Like, you shouldn't be spending that money. But if it's something you really enjoy doing, then by all means, spend money on it. And sometimes even like turn up the dial on it, because if you really like doing it, you should spend more money on it. I think where the balance play comes into effect is we shouldn't be trying to spend all of our money, or we shouldn't be trying to like kind of splurge on everything, right? So, for example, what else am I like kind of into? I don't know. I'm kind of into woodworking. I'm kind of into woodworking, but woodworking is like a really expensive endeavor. And so, like, I could go and buy my own table saw and buy my own jigsaw and like do all this stuff and like invest in woodworking. But like, for me, woodworking is just like a part-time hobby. So it's not really something that I'm looking to spend a lot of money on. So what I did instead, though, was I joined what's called a tool library, and the tool library allows me to just rent out tools as if it was a library, but you just pay one yearly fee for like $60, I think, and it gives you access to all these tools, so used tools, but still, it allows me to dabble in my woodworking a little bit here and there, but still not spend that much money on it. So it allows you to like kind of do that little side activity, but then not spend a lot of money on it, and allow me to spend money on the things that I do enjoy doing, like a $500 canoe paddle. So that imbalance is kind of important. And so it's really about moderating and finding out what you enjoy doing and really spending money on that. But trying to weed out what you don't enjoy doing, right? So like, when you go to restaurants, this is a super popular thing. When you go to a restaurant, do you get an appetizer? Do you get a drink or like 3 mojitos? And then do you get a main course, and do you like splurge on the main course too? And then do you finish with a dessert as well? Because like, if that's your thing, like maybe you're a foodie, right? Maybe you're a foodie and like that is your thing. You want to try as many dishes on the menu as possible. And if that's your thing, then by all means, like, spend that money on it. But like, for, I would say like maybe 90% of people, it's not our thing, right? Like, yeah, we like food. I mean, I love eating food. I'm sure you probably love eating food too. but it doesn't necessarily mean that we should be buying the best appetizer every time we go out, buying the best entree every time we go out, splurging on like 5 mojitos every time we go out. Maybe occasionally, but not every time. So that's kind of the ideal thought process with that. I got a question here or kind of a point from Duncan. Thanks, Duncan. Hello. Good point, Mark. I think we should splurge on what we're passionate about, not materialistic thing that we don't really care about. Yeah, absolutely. And I know Duncan actually really enjoys photography, right? So for Duncan to drop, $1,000 on a lens for his camera, for me, it doesn't really make sense. Even though I'm a YouTuber and I do dabble in photography or camera or videography a little bit. It's just not my thing. And so I'm not really like that into dropping a couple $1,000s on a camera lens, but it is for Duncan. And so it always depends on the person, right? So like Duncan, it makes sense for him to spend $2,000 on a camera lens, but it doesn't for me. I'm good to get away with a $500 camera and lens standard kit. So it's all about finding that balance. But anyways, I really enjoyed doing this live stream. I think I'm going to try to come on here every Friday, do about 20 minutes, 30 minutes of answering people's questions about personal finances and just money questions in general. So if you have a question, the way you get your question answered is you have to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Money with Mark. That's right. I've changed my brand a little bit. It used to be Mediocre Money. Now it's Money with Mark. And just comment on either my money questions answered video or comment on any of my videos and just ask me a personal finance question. And I will read your question out in the next episode of Your Money Questions Answered. So thanks for sticking around. This is Mark, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.